I love how you mentioned, you're heading to Nashville because you want to have you want to be a songwriter. Ultimately, that's the goal. You want to have cuts by your heroes. But yeah, here you are. You
I
get
hope.
signed to a major label, MCA, with McBride and the Ride. So that goal kind of got diverted for a little while again, and you find yourself as a frontman again. Um, are you excited about this, or are you still wanting to write for other people?
Oh no, I was so excited because Tony Brown was involved. I'd already submitted songs, a photo. I was living in Lubbock,
Okay.
and my friend Wally Moyers was a great steel guitar player. Now he's an incredibly successful person. He's created this company called Moyers where they do install audio, video screens, and all that kind of stuff for like Texas Tech, whoever. But he was the steel player and just a supportive guy to this day. He still
Mhm.
is that way. And he said, "Let's get some. You're cutting these cool demos." I was cutting some stuff in Lubbock, writing some songs and a song called "Don't Be Mean to Me" that McBride and the Ride cut. I'd written that, and I put a little demo cassette tape together. He took some pictures of me, looking so bad, horrible. But we sent it to MCA because I love Tony Brown. He just co-produced that first Steve Earle record, and
Mhm.
kind of blew my mind, Guitar Town. And he was also, you know, had worked with Patty Loveless, Steve Warner, a lot of people I really were some of my favorites,
Mhm.
and just I was kind of obsessed with him for a while. He and Pete Anderson at the time, but which I gurned Pete Anderson to and gave him a copy of what I was doing. But Tony Brown sent back a rejection letter on the MCA letterhead. Sorry, but your direction doesn't quite fit what we're doing here at MCA. And it was signed by Tony Brown. I almost lost my mind. That's like the closest thing. That's the biggest thing that happened to me
So it was
from
like
that
good
point.
news and bad news for you then, huh?
Yeah,
That's
being
amazing.
rejected.
Yeah,
But I kept that rejection letter in a scrapbook, and then I showed it to Tony years later after he signed me.
that's
He
amazing.
couldn't believe it. He's like, "Oh my
Yeah,
god, yeah."
that's
But
great.
I wasn't ready. The songs weren't that caliber. We had that one good song and a couple that were just okay, and it's not really the way you catch somebody's attention or ears like a guy like Tony Brown. But when we did come back and we had some really cool stuff, the door opened. Where
Mhm.
before I definitely had it closed. I made many trips to Nashville, and that's a long ride home from Nashville to Austin when you've been turned down and rejected by, I just wasn't sure anything would ever happen. I just was starting to lose hope, but I didn't give up completely. And well, I left Delbert. I kind of got myself together a little bit. I got sober and I got serious, and it just led me immediately to Bill and Ruth.
Mhm.
Auditioning for that band through my friend Roddy Colonna, who said, "I think you should audition for this band," and I did. My life would have taken a completely different turn and path if it had not been for Bill and Ruth.
It's good stuff. So yeah, it's 1989. So that's when McBride and the Ride is formed, and you had like a 6 year run that was incredible. Like you had several songs in the top five. You had the number one, Sacred Ground, multiple award nominations. But the
Mhm.
band ended in '95. What happened?
Well, it's like guitar strings. It just takes one to screw up the whole thing. So I mean,
I gotcha. All right.
no, it's just I'll tell you what happened to me. Honestly, we've talked about this many times, and it's a shame the business of McBride and the Ride eventually kind of put a wedge between us to some degree, and also, it was McBride and the Ride. I got a lot of attention, you
Yeah.
know, back in the day, and the guys sometimes did not, and it used to hurt me. I really liked those guys. I still do. We're all still together now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, and unfortunately, we ended and just didn't let it end there. I guess is what I'm trying to say. When the band broke up, we just didn't let it end there. We slowly got over our little wounds and hurt feelings and whatever, and then continued to kind of reach out. Ray, really the instigator of a lot of that. But Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, I mean, I was like I said, that was one part of it. We couldn't go anywhere where somebody would go, "You McBride, you almost be the Ride." Then most of the questions were directed to me, and
Hmm.
it would just get awkward. Oh, I used to dread it sometimes, but we'd start splitting things up. I'd do some things, they would do some things, and we try to spread it out. Just some damage had been done. I was writing all the songs. I was making more money than those guys were. That played into it because we'd be doing an interview. Terry, you must be making a killing, And
Yeah.
Billy and Ray haven't written any hits yet,
No.
and my publishing was already established. It wasn't like, and that's the thing about it. We weren't a band that grew up together as kids. We were put together by Tony Brown.
Mhm.
It doesn't really, he had a great idea and he had some great people in mind because little did he know the harmony of Ray and Billy and myself together was something
Incredible.
like family
Yeah.
harmony. We had no idea. It became a bonus. We thought we were going to be these great players, but the harmony became our signature sound,
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And they were it was like an all-star team. Like you guys all came from different areas, but like yeah, you guys were all, you all
Yeah.
came from somewhere, right? Like you
And
all had
that was Tony Brown. He can put a great dinner party together or a band, whatever
yeah.
you need. He can really do it. He's really good at it, and that's why he's a producer. He's good at organizing and dotting all the i's and crossing the t's. He knows how to make it happen, and he had a great idea. He really had these guys that were perfect. Like you said, Billy had just come from Emmylou Harris, and
Yep.
Ray was on that Lyle Lovett record,
Mhm.
and had been with Lyle, and so Tony produced that record, and it was all handpicked people, which I was flattered to, you know, be in a band that they were going to build the band around these songs I'd written. So I thought, what do I have to lose? I didn't really want to be in a band, but once Tony, you know, laid it out there, and then once I met Billy and Ray, it all changed. It felt really good.
Yeah.
And then once we played, we went, "Geez, this could be something cool." They were so into it, and they still are. I mean, we still rehearse a lot, we still talk a lot, we still are serious about trying to sound good. It's funny, I can still sing. I think in some ways I'm better than I was when I was younger.
I agree.
And somebody posted something recently. Terry's lost his voice. I went, oh my god! I don't know where he saw me, but I went, oh boy. I mean, for the most part, I'm probably in better shape in a lot of ways. But yeah, I
you
take a lot of pride, and we do as a band of musicians. We still want to sound really good.
you talked about harmony and that kind of being your signature thing with McBride and the Ride. Do you remember the first time you guys kind of figured that out? Like, oh my God, what was that? Do that again.
Yeah, we started simple. Trying to figure those harmonies right off the bat. Ray would just play a guitar,
Mhm.
and the thing about it is Billy and Ray, they're both such good. They're so accomplished as the musician that it also plays a part when you start looking for these harmony parts, which if you're not smart and sharp about it, it
Mhm.
can go south. If one part is off, once you start adding a part more than just the part above, it becomes tricky. A little bit of math. It's it's interesting. I've done enough in the studio where it can be a lot of work for me. Where somewhere like Billy or Ray, they can really they map it out in their head, or they can write it out.
Mhm.
Then they can see where they need to land, the trills, and all that fun stuff that goes with doing background harmonies. There's a real art to it, especially if you want to do it well.
Mhm.
It's a real certain people who are really good at it, and we just happen to have a couple guys in McBride The Ride that are really good at it. And Ray's a big baritone. He's that big warm voice, speaking voice, sounds like a radio voice. And Billy's the super high tenor guy on all those early Vince Gill records and all that cool stuff. Little Liza Jane. That's Billy singing on
Mhm.
that record, and a lot of others. Even early on with McBride the Ride, Billy was already singing on those records or playing drums. He had just played the drums on Hillbilly Rock, the Marty Stewart album, and that was right at the peak of McBride the Ride, like
Yeah.
'91 or
I
so.
always I always knew when it was y'all, and I think
But
that was kind of a '80s and '90s thing, man. Like you always knew who was the artist. You didn't have to ask, right? Like you didn't have to be
oh,
like, who's that? No, we always knew.
oh,
We knew
that's
when.
cool, man.
Yeah, of course, man.